is in the studios with us. Herschel, good to see you. Appreciate you coming in.
You too, Bob. Thanks for the invitation, and good to see you and Jonathan both. Before you start, I've got to take a moment and wish Tate Rogers, one of my granddaughters, a birthday from earlier this week, and today McKinley Rogers, one of my granddaughters, and Ivy Hires, another granddaughter. Birthdays today.
Well, happy birthday. I want to start with the retreat. Had a retreat last Thursday and Friday at the Wayne County Airport. Met with several department heads, several other people. Just tell us how the retreat went and the overall impressions of the retreat, what the purpose of it was, and what was accomplished.
It went really well. It was a really positive retreat. It was very educational for we commissioners. Ed, our county administrator Jeffords, had planned this retreat for us to start thinking ahead and seeing what our plan forward was going to be for the county for the next 5 years. So he tasked every department head and some of the constitutional officers with thinking forward. Okay, where do you see your department being in 5 years? What do you see the needs of your department in order to meet the needs of the community? And it was really positive. We out of it we came with some ideas that we need to work towards adding staff to our EMS system. Right now we run an ambulance and a half, you might say, and we need to increase that. So we got more EMTs and paramedics on duty for a 24-hour period, and we're working towards getting that upgraded. We had a report from Dale Keith, the director of the Industrial Development Authority, that was very positive, where he shared some numbers with us on the numbers of jobs we've had increased in the county and the amount of money that some of our local industry has spent. You know, a lot of times we get beat up and we hear that we're not bringing industry in, we're not bringing high-paying jobs in, we're not being proactive on it. It's not the case. The Industrial Development Authority works diligently. One thing we have to do is make sure we retain our existing industry and that we support them so that they're successful and they keep the jobs we have. So we're proud to say that the IDA, working with our local industry and the commission, we're able to have an expansion. For example, at Healthy Pet, one of our larger industries, an $18 million expansion. And they added 15 new high-paying jobs. Sierra Machinery, a $1.5 million expansion when they added a few jobs, and they can't even staff what they need now. EAM, another large expansion and more high-paying jobs. Camurs, the mining company, 65 new jobs and a direct taxable for the county on our tax digest was a $23 million addition. So it was real positive.
And staying with the IDA, one project that's underway is the industrial park. Mm-hmm. They continue to work on that, try to improve that area. Explain to people where that industrial park area is and what all's taking place there, because I know a lot of work's been done in the last several months about that.
The new industrial park that the Industrial Development Authority has chosen, the location, is an area off of 84 that is really close to the entrance of Henson Mosley Boulevard.
It's right across the street from us, basically.
It is. It sure is. And the entrance, the IDA, in addition to the park acreage, bought some acreage to have a new, nice, really attention-grabbing entrance to the new park. In the future, our plan is to have that park join the old industrial park out on Sunset on the backside, so that we basically can roll all the way around that area. And we would like to have a road in the future that keeps that truck traffic off of Sunset and from downtown, and gets that truck traffic where the first thing it does is hit a 4-lane out here, whether it goes to Waycross or to the ports through town. We're really proud for them to get that acreage, and we have to have that in order for industry to even look at coming to the county. We got to have a place ready for them to come light. And I have to give kudos to Dale and the members of the IDA for grabbing that property and getting it on the rolls for industrial growth.
Like I said, people may not see what's going on, but there is a lot going on behind the scenes.
There's a lot.
Another thing that's going on behind the scenes with this COVID-19, we talked to Jay. We had the school superintendent, Jay Brinson, here yesterday. Every Friday there's a group of people that get together to discuss what's taking place in Wayne County with the COVID. Explain who all's meeting on Friday, what the purpose of that meeting is, but apparently that's been very productive as well.
It has, and to give you just a brief history on that, when COVID-19 first hit our horizon, and we learned of the first case in Georgia, the mayor of Jessup, Dr. Jay Brinson with the school board, Nick Harris, chairman, myself, the sheriff, and the director of the local Department of Health, Ms. Stacy Brooker, we decided to meet and discuss the what-ifs. We were concerned that John Roddy is also a major player in our group, the hospital administrator. One of the things was, what if our hospital gets overrun with cases? What do we do? Because all the surrounding counties would also be overrun, so we needed a plan B. And we reached out to our state leaders and asked them about the possibility of taking the old Wayne CI. It has an infirmary facility, it has a cafeteria, it has jail cells. If we get overrun and we need a place to remotely quarantine or remotely test or even remotely house, they work with us to have that availability if we had to set up a triage separate from our local hospital. Also with the school board and Dr. Brinson, we had a plan in place also if we had to take some facilities that the school board wasn't using because school was shut down, if we had to set a triage unit up in one of the schools. So those were the kind of things we started discussing, and it grew from there. We started every week. We brought in the mayors of the other two cities, the city manager, the county administrator. Richard Johnson, our EMA director, has been very instrumental in working with Stacy with the health department on keeping us updated on all the COVID-19 changes, all the mandates from the governor, all the executive orders. It's been very productive, and it's helped. For example, the school board having to make a decision on graduation, having to make a decision on starting school back. We all talk about it so that one entity isn't sticking their neck out alone without the support of the rest of the community leaders. So it's been one of the most productive things I've been a part of since being a commissioner.
And like I told Jay yesterday, the problem is right now everybody's in that what-if world.
Yeah. Yes.
Just like the school made a decision they're going to start school August 24th, and now they're, what if this happens? What if this? There's not any answers right now.
There's not.
But that's where we're at. Everybody's in the what if. What if this happens? What if that happens? And I was talking to you earlier before we went on there. People remember when this first began, the county and the cities got together, and it was a local ordinance that was in effect.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden the state took over, and then the state had all their guidelines in place for a while, and then all of a sudden it flipped back to them. Now everything seems to be coming back to the local decisions, just like the State Board of Education passed the buck to the local school boards. Y'all decide what you're going to do, and you see all across the state, everybody's doing their own little individual thing, which they think's best for them, and nobody seems to know what is right, what is wrong.
I know.
Everybody's just they're flying by and hoping it all works out.
That's right.
That's kind of that's we talked about it from day one. The frustrating thing is there's no consistency anywhere from anybody.
I think in some ways the State Board of Education and the governor's office basically have to understand, and they do, that what suits Wayne County and Jessup for protecting or ensuring the health of their residents, that pattern doesn't fit Fulton County in Atlanta. It doesn't fit Chatham County and Savannah. So in some ways I have to respect their decisions to make that where it's a local decision. One thing that we did early on, and we reached out, Andy Beaver, our county attorney, reached out to all of our constitutional officers and said, okay, running your offices, this is something that's constitutionally required. How are we going to safely run your office? And we worked together on trying to put in some safe stops, and having it where their employees were protected, our county employees were protected, the public was protected. So, one of the very first things we did was close Lake Grace to outside residents because all of the numbers of the counties around us were higher than ours. And, Lake Grace belongs to Wayne County and the residents of Wayne County. So in closing that, when the beaches were closed and the students were out of school and all the college students were free, Lake Grace was becoming the regional place to gather.
To be, right.
And honestly, the sheriff could not handle the influx of people out there. So the county commission, we voted to close Lake Grace and keep it, have a curfew and limit the type of activities out there. I was adamant about this, fishing and a fishing vessel needed to be allowed because we didn't know what was going to happen. That's the source of food. and it's a source of recreation for people to get out and get away from all these things going on around us. So those are the kind of decisions that we made early on. And I know that doesn't mean a whole lot to a lot of people, but if you consider keeping residents from a county whose numbers were really high from coming and mingling with our people, I think was working at the time. Now, of course, if we had a spike, things have changed,
of course. But again, if you just joined us, Herschel Harris, Chairman of the County Commission, with us talking about the retreat they had last week. One other person that I just mentioned, you met with department heads. The sheriff was there. Like I said, we talk about everybody. Every time you come to these meetings, they talk about visions. I told you can't think 2 weeks. 2 months down the road, you got to think years down the road. So
we have to be proactive.
And talked about things that he'd like to see. The sheriff explain what all he's looking for.
One of the things that the sheriff and I are close. We talk a lot, and we talk a lot about county business, and we talk a lot about personal business, and we've been close, and we trust each other a lot. And one of the things that we know and have discussed is the mental health in Wayne County. When I was in law enforcement, dealing with a mental health affected individual was maybe 1 in 10 or 20. We might make 1 or 2 trips a month to Georgia Regional to take somebody to the Savannah Regional mental health facility. Now the sheriff's department's dealing with it practically daily, and it's because not only some of it's drug enhanced, some of it's metabolism or chemical enhanced, but we have got to start being proactive, and we're going to have to build a wing at least on our law enforcement complex, our jail, to house mental health affected people or mentally affected people for their safety and the safety of the inmates and the employees. So that's one of the things that the sheriff is adamant about that we've got to start looking towards is that and then the increased security of the courts. The sheriff it's amazing the budget works and woes he goes through to maintain our jail, to maintain our court system and securities, serve the papers, run the biggest law enforcement in the county. It's amazing, a phenomenal job he does, and how he works with us with limited funding to do those things. I'm glad we've got the rapport we've got and the opportunity to work with him like we do.
One story that's been in the news recently with the Wayne County Commission is the J.C. Landing and the bait shop. Where do we stand on that? I know they talked about middle building, things like that. So what's the latest on the bait shop at J.C. Landing? Okay,
the latest on that is, as you may know, we demolished the existing building down there a few weeks ago. The commission voted to demolish it, and that building was in such bad shape. When it was new, it was a fine building. It was built by the trades of the high school back in the 80s and given to the county. Jonathan, you might remember years ago, they built those buildings out behind the school and they sold them. That's where that building came from. And it had been added on to. It was in bad shape. It had mold. It was beyond repair. So we decided to tear it down. We're going to put a temporary building there. We may staff it with county employees for the time being. But in the interim, we're going to try to give the people of the county at J.C. Landing a place to buy minimal baits, crackers, Cokes, and stuff like that. We hope to have that up and running within a few months, if not a month. Now, there is a committee formed for the enhancement of J.C. Landing. About 3 years ago, the county was given a grant, an in-kind grant, to spend around $200,000 at J.C. for a walkway, a nature walk, a kayak landing place, and a building for history, for the vast history of Griffin Ridge and Alma Hall
for bird watching and things like that too.
Stuff like that. Just to kind of not just to satisfy the fishermen and the boaters, but also people that might want to just come see nature down there. And that's ecotourism is just it's a growing thing in this state, and we were going to try to tap into it. So we formed a committee. Actually, I think Kevin Copeland, when he was chairman, formed this committee, and he asked Ed Jeffers to sit on it at that time before he ever became administrator. And this committee is tasked with, okay, how are we going to spend this money? Now, about the time we got the grant is when we voted for the tax increase, the millage rate. And I was not about to move forward on spending $20,000 of the county's money for the matching funds in order to spend that other $180,000. Wasn't going to do it. Wouldn't do it again. Now, once that's settled down, and J.C. Landing has become a hot topic again, we're moving forward. But we're going to let the J.C. Landing Committee advise the county commissioners on what they would like to see done. Now, this committee is comprised of fishermen, boaters, kayakers, local businessmen, people that the commission needs to listen to on how county residents would like to best see J.C. Landing enhanced. And I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't listen to the people that use it. And we have a meeting. Actually, I requested a meeting today week at J.C. Landing with that committee to start the ball rolling again and get the nature walk built, and then move on to request another grant next year to do some more enhancements on it.
One thing you hear all the time, I hear from people I talk to, they don't understand how a road paving project gets underway, how people get on, how their road gets on the priority list, how long it takes to be on the priority list before it gets paved.
Yeah.
The process. Tell people all the time, you still have to get right of ways, things like
That's
that.
right.
And sometimes that messes things up. But just explain, and for the average person out there listening that may not understand how the process works. First the road has to get on the list, and then from there, how's it work?
Okay.
And
all right. Let's
explain
start.
how it gets on the list. Right?
Let's start with how it gets on the list, and I'll tell you how I do it. When I first came in office, I was blind or dumb to the fact of how a road got on a priority list in a district. So I asked for a meeting with Elton Aspwall, who's our lead guy with the road department. He and Buddy Starling both run the.
And while we mention those two guys, just want to commend those guys.
Oh man, they're
people,
awesome.
I mean, for a county our size, those guys are just invaluable.
They are. They are.
And then you add Bill Schuman to the list. I mean, I tell people I don't know what we're going to do when Bill Schuman, Elton Aspwall decide to retire, because those guys, the meetings. I mean, the wealth of knowledge those two guys have is just off the chain. I mean, it's unbelievable.
We are so blessed to have Elton having retired from the DOT and come on board with us to help us with projects and management, and again, Bill with the engineering side, and then Buddy with his experience with the road department. I mean, we've got the perfect team to keep the roads passable for emergency vehicles, which is something that a lot of people don't understand. We have to have these roads where school buses can go down them safely for the kids, ambulances, fire trucks, and sheriff vehicles get down them. We got to have them passable, and we have one of the largest road masses in the state. I think we got right at 680 square miles or linear miles of roadway. Some paved, some dirt. Most of that is dirt, and it's costly to maintain. So when I took office and I sat down with Elton, I said, yeah, and he told me, he said, you got to look at your priority list for your district. I said, okay, how do we decide this? And he said, well, it's mainly the will of the commissioner of that district. And what? He said, yeah. I said, yeah, it's not based on. He said, no, it's based on what the commissioner wants. So my request to him was take the list he had and take the list of roads in my district. It's just District 1, the Odom area, Madrid Springs, Crossroads, and base it on how much it costs per quarter mile to maintain the dirt road. And if we will be better served to pave a section or all of a road to knock down on that maintenance cost, that's the way I'd rather him base it on. It didn't matter to me who lived on it. It didn't matter to me how many nice homes were on it. To me, it mattered how much did it cost the county to maintain it. So that's how.
So each commissioner gets a priority list. How many roads does each commissioner put on the list? I mean, how many roads are on the priority list at this time?
It varies. For example, Commissioner Hickox in the Jessup district doesn't have quite as many miles because so much of his is in the city. So he may have 2 or 3 priorities. Commissioner Thomas in the 4th district, same way. A lot of his are city. 2, 3, and 1 districts are mostly the rural districts. We may have 6 or 7, and we also reach out to David Simmons with the Board of Education maintenance facilities. What are your bus drivers having the biggest problem with? Because
so the roads are on the list, and what happens after that? How much money is in the budget for road paving each year? I mean, sure, that has something to do with how many roads are paved as well.
It does. It varies. It varies based on T-SPLOS money's coming in, and it varies based on the TIA grants, the Transportation Investment Act from the federal government.
So let's say the county commissioners agree we're going to pave this road. What happens then? You have to go out and get the right-of-way, get the approval of that.
Yeah.
And what happens if somebody doesn't want to give the right-of-way? What happens then? Do you condemn that property, or do you work with them, or how's that work? Because that seems to be what ties a lot of projects up.
It hasn't been a common in the past for the commissioners to condemn a person's property. That's just it has happened. It's had to happen in the past for some of the larger, more used roads to get. More expensive roads to get paved, but that is one step. Fortunately, I haven't had to condemn any that I can remember in District 1. But it gets placed on the priority list based on either the needs of the commissioner, the desires of the commissioner, or the cost. And then the engineering is done to see what it will cost to pave that stretch of road, what it's going to cost for the drainage, what it's going to cost for wetlands mitigation, because if we're crossing a creek.
You may know this figure better than I do, but there was a figure shown at how much just 1 mile of road cost to get paved. It was. When they gave that figure, I fell out of my chair.
Yeah.
I was like,
it's in the tens of thousands of dollars.
Yes,
it's for a quarter mile. Actually,
right.
It's in the tens of thousands.
Very expensive.
It is.
So, how long since you've been on the commission? How long do you think? Just the average ballpark number of years a road will stay on that priority list before it's paved? And what's your? You've been there.
Some I've been there almost 4 years. Some I have some roads on that priority list that were on when I took office, and I didn't change them because that's the way Elton had based his numbers. Some of them are still not paved.
Right.
Now, two of them that were top priority are on the paving list for one for this year and one for next year, early next year.
The reason I bring it up, and I said I still remember, I think we passed a SPLOST years ago for road pavement. Mm-hmm. So the question people ask all the time, how many roads were paved? And we still have all these unpaved roads, but we passed a 1% SPLOST to paved roads. So the question is, why aren't we seeing roads being paved?
Some of it is because of right-of-way issues. In some situations, when the road was placed on the priority list and the easements were acquired, or at least the easements were promised by the landowners. Well, by the time it gets around to actually doing the surveying and engineering, that property owner may have sold it to another property owner. Now, that property owner there may be the only one in a stretch of a 2-mile road that says, I don't think I want to give that property for that road to be paved. Well, then you kind of have to back up and start the condemnation process, or either start negotiating with that property owner to acquire that property.
Another question I get asked by a lot of people all the time, they ask about liquor licenses, and I say all the time that the state law pretty much mandates, if they do the paperwork and everything, the commissioners have voiced this frustration as well. Why are we voting on it when we don't really have a say in it? So explain that process, because people don't understand that. They think the local commissioners have the final say, but really the state has the final say as long as they meet state requirements. There's nothing really the commissioners can do. Same thing with the city. Stanley Todd voiced his frustration, him being a pastor. Why are we voting on this? I don't want to vote on this, but you don't have your hands are tied, basically. Yeah,
it's in some ways we're a rubber stamp for the state revenue department mandates and the requirements. For example, if a property owner that has a convenience store at 301 and 160 or 301 Arena Road, if he meets the state requirements, background checks and local requirements, which are mirrored on state requirements, then yes, the county typically and technically can't deny him the right to obtain that liquor license. Because I've seen in the past, I've seen it happen in other counties where, because of religious beliefs or because of moral beliefs, commissioners would say, no, we're not going to give you a liquor license, and that property owner turned around and filed a lawsuit because he met requirements, and that municipality or county lost.
What about the Sunday referendum on the ballot in November?
We did vote this year to allow the voters to decide whether or not they wanted to allow Sunday liquor sales out in the unincorporated areas of the county, and that'll be on November's referendum.
So is that just C stores in liquor stores, or does that include restaurants like the city? We have two separate ones.
You have a beer and wine license, which is one thing, and then you also have a liquor license, which is a pouring license or a mixing license. The pouring license is mostly for restaurants that serve food.
Right.
That's some of the qualifications you have to meet to have a pouring license. The Liquor Sunday sales will be for beer and wine on the November ballot.
Okay, thank you.
Getting towards the end of the program, like I said, I talked to you all day, but one thing, we just got the press release this week, had the story, the county had an executive session, reached an agreement on a pending litigation against Altamont Bluff. People are asking, who's Altamont Bluff? Explain what Altamont Bluff is.
Okay. In 2014, after and based on the Rayonier lawsuit for their overassessments, in 2014, a class action group was formed by an attorney out of Brunswick. The class action consisted of any property owners in Wayne County that owned 25 acres or more timberland. And this class action was to give them the same relief, tax-wise and monetarily, that the courts had awarded Rayonier. And then subsequently, Weyerhaeuser, which was the old Plum Creek, Weyerhaeuser requested the same relief from the county that Rayonier got, with a few technical differences. So in 2014, Altamont Bluff, which at that time was a piece of property and a few landowners up in District 1 near the Crossroads area, they were the flagship for the class action lawsuit. And around 400 plus people joined the class action lawsuit against the county. And through 15, 16, 17, it's been in and out of court with motions and requests and parameters, and finally got down to the point it was fixing to go to sit before the man in the black robe with the county commission on one side and Altamont Bluff on the other. We decided to go into mediation, and we settled or agreed to a consent order to not go to court. And our settlement was $1.75 million. Around 60 of that, 60%, 58 to 60% is the school board's portion, and then the remaining.
If the judge signs off on it, well, I understand this will be the final event of that. This will be all the lawsuits will now be done, right?
Yes.
And this has been something that's been going on for years and years and years, dating all the way back to the Rayonier lawsuit. So
when I woke up Wednesday
that'll
morning,
be a sigh of relief for the county commissioner to realize there's no longer pending litigation concerning land and timber and things like that.
Previous tax assessments. When I woke up Wednesday morning, our county attorney and I were talking earlier. It hit me, and I called him, and we talked about it. I said, for once since I've become a commissioner, we don't have a large, potentially multi-million-dollar lawsuit hanging over our heads. They're now settled. They're all out. Now, that's not saying somebody can't turn around and file something again next week, but it'll take years for it to come to fruition.
I said we got the people were just asking what I didn't know what the answer is. So it's just a group of landowners.
It's a group of landowners, and I don't know who those landowners are purposely.
But you're saying close to 400 of them, all in one lawsuit.
Okay. And it kind of what's going to have to happen with that is once a judge signs off on it, and it is not one of the judges in our normal judicial district. This is a judge out of the Atlantic Judicial Circuit, I believe, out of Darien. Once he signs off and agrees that the attorneys have represented the taxpayers well, and they're getting a fair deal in tax credits, then it's placed in a trust. The monies are placed in a trust, and there are trustees that actually go over it and say, okay, John Q. Citizen that owns 80 acres in Scriven is due this number of dollars based on this. Right. So
once they get to one point, they'll decide who gets what. And
they'll divvy up who gets what. Now, they'll get paid half of it.
And I'm sure the lawyer will get his nice check.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, that was what's so frustrating about all those lawsuits was that the lawyers were making millions. And
mostly the plaintiffs' lawyers. They're the ones that get a large percentage, 37%.
So it's kind of like a divorce. You're better off just selling and not go to court, because if you go to court, the lawyers are going to
Speaking of that,
get more money than anybody.
I've got to give praise to Andy Beaver, our county attorney, and Todd Carter, who was a co-counsel on that, on helping us get that resolved and not wind up in court. You know, when I went into office, one of the things we were constantly in court. We were suing Rayonier. We were constantly in court, and one of the things that I kind of stood on was I am going to do my best to keep us out of court. And that being settled, I've been able to maintain that. But Andy Beaver and Todd Carter are such great counselors to us and keep us, all county business. They help keep us out of court. And I'd give kudos to them.
Okay, well, again, Herschel, you're welcome anytime. Again, we welcome all the commissioners in any time. But like I said, it sounds like it was a good retreat.
It was very positive.
The key is, like I said, the vision is what Wayne County focus on, and people need to understand the vision's not 2 months, 2 years.
No.
The vision's 5, 10 years. Where's this place going? How are we going to grow? Like I said, Dale Keith does a tremendous job as the IDA director. Again, he's got a lot going on, and he has constant communication with people up in Atlanta. And like he mentioned when he was here on the show, you had 156 counties. They're all up there fighting for those dollars. They're all fighting for those projects. So it's just all about making those connections and knowing people. That's why it's so great to see the governor here a week ago. Yeah. David Earl got him to come. Kelly Loeffler was here, the day for Wayne. People come down there. I mean, you have to make those connections and get, that's why it's such a great thing for Wayne County to have such a great working relationship with our representatives, Stephen Meeks, Blake Tillery, Bill Workheiser. They all work well together, but they all work well together with our local officials, and everybody knows them on a first-name basis. So it's just, you have to have that well-oiled machine. It's all a team. We say it all the time. We're all in this together. So it's nice to see everybody come together and work for the betterment of everybody here in Wayne County.
There are so many things that industry looks at when they look into a community. They look at the schools. How well educated are their employees' kids going to be? They look at emergency facilities and the availability of doctors and hospital you have. They also look at how well the community gets along. An industry is not likely to come into a community that's constantly fighting. And I think right now our cities and county governments are probably working the best together that we have in years. We're going to complete our SDS service delivery strategy agreements hopefully by the end of October of this year and have that. We had to, of course, I had to stop it because of COVID. But we're working through all the things that we need to make sure people don't get double taxed on. So the mayor, city manager, commissioners, city and county, we're all working closely together to make sure we have Wayne County a good place to work, a great place to live, and an awesome place to retire. So
sounds good. Again, we appreciate you coming in, and welcome anytime. That's going to do it for today's World Famous Butch and Bob Show. Again, everybody have a great day and stay safe.
Since 1946, Murphy's Builder Supply has been serving the folks of Jessup, Wayne, and surrounding counties with quality